Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons by people who love The Simpsons about how much we hate The Simpsons. We're here trying to find which is the worst episode ever. My name is Dan.
My name is Jack.
And we want to thank everyone for listening to us today. Being here with us at We Studios in spirit, right?
Yeah, thank you. I love our fan community. It's small but fervent.
It's vibrant. Yeah, no, we had some really great fan art, I guess, is how we'll describe all of it. We had a listener, Matt Thornton, I hope I'm saying that right, Thornton, did a picture of us as Simpsons characters.
Yeah, Simpsonized.
Simpsonized us's.
Yeah. I've had a few people comment that I don't quite look like the logo, and I'm sure you have too, because your chin does not extend 3 feet.
My upper lip is not.
You're kind of like Alec Baldwin in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, right.
But just in case you guys didn't quite get that logo is, it's itchy and scratchy models, and just so it's not quite Simpsonized versions of me and you. It's
right. Itchy and scratchy-eyed.
Yeah,
versions
it's
of
itchy
us.
and exactly. So
yeah.
Just in case anybody thought that you had a really big chin or that I was just like short, stumpy, bulging eyes.
Nelson's goon from season 1.
Nelson's goon from season 1. So Matt's Simpsonized version was a little bit more accurate. If we were to be yellow-skinned cartoons, I think that would be more in line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and that's exactly what we look like.
He got my arm hair.
He got your arm hair. He got my giant feet.
Got the stink lines and everything.
Very good.
That wasn't the only fan art we got this week.
So thanks, Matt, for that. And then also, we had a diorama made of us. Of We Studios, in fact.
Yeah. I've never had anybody make a diorama of my home.
Never.
My studio, or me.
Which may or may not be one of the same thing, your home and your studio. So Casey Connor, thank you so much for that. It was a diorama that she made of We Studios, where we were Bill and Marty. Again, you can see the picture on the Facebook page. We were Bill and Marty, and we had Classic Pickles were in the studio, and Dalek was there.
Lots of inside jokes.
Yes,
it was the Jockey Elf's Empty Nest. It was just really, it was really cool. It was
awesome.
It was honestly just like one of the coolest things anybody's ever done related to me.
Yes, I agree. One of the coolest things ever done related to Jack.
You've had plenty of...
I get dioramas made of me all the time.
Dioramas, dollhouses. It's that bronze sculpture of you in Philadelphia.
Punching Rocky in the face. So Casey, thank you for that. And that was actually made in conjunction with the diorama Rama that we had last week at Simpsons Trivia in Brooklyn. Yeah. Which, by the time this goes up, there should be photos out there.
I hope so. There were so many awesome... I don't know how
they were really awesome.
You were one of the 2 or 3 judges.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you do it, because they were all winners. In another more accurate way, there were a few more real winners. But no, they were all awesome. There's so many good ones.
Yeah, well, there was one that clearly didn't deserve to win.
Yeah.
Because it was just a box that said, clearly this doesn't deserve to win.
Yeah, no, that didn't. I thought you were going to say mine.
No, well, yours didn't deserve to win either.
Which I did, here's a little meta Wii stuff going on. I did a joke, one of my favorite Simpsons jokes, that I was positive was from season 7 or 8. Yeah. It's always stuck with me. And then after me and my girlfriend made it, and cards on the table, she did 80% of the actual physical labor, because I'm terrible with arts and crafts.
Yep.
But after I actually was almost done with it, I looked it up just to see what exactly I was doing, and I was shocked to realize it was a season 11 episode.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it is one that I don't even like at all. It's the one where Bart is on Ritalin, focusing, and Mark McGuire hits dingers.
I actually like that episode.
I have to rewatch it. I remember hating it, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, that joke stuck with me. I did the... where Skinner's telling Homer and Marge that Bart's dragging the grades down of everybody around him, and he shows him the seating chart, and then he goes, and then if we look at the 3D model...
It's just the cone.
Yeah, the cone of ignorance.
The cone of ignorance.
So, if anything, I can at least... I don't actually have any pictures, and I threw it out immediately because it was snowing, and I didn't want to
I think we got some pictures
carry it home. Yeah, I hope so. I hope the picture's up to check out my cone of ignorance.
Yes, so by now they should be around. I probably posted them on the Facebook page or tweeted out the link. But anyway, that's all in the past, Jack. Yeah. We're looking at the future.
We're looking at the future of the past.
The future of the past. Here we go. Possible episode title.
And because we're doing a season we've never done before.
Yes, we are doing season 20 today. We are going to watch Lisa the Drama Queen.
Okay.
Have you seen this one, Jack?
I don't think I have. Again, there's always a chance I have seen it and didn't realize it. I don't know. Have you seen it?
I've definitely not seen this one. This one first aired in January of 2009.
I mean, it's obviously a reference to Lisa the Beauty Queen. Real quick, though, last week we did the season 13 episode, The Frying Pan. I keep wanting to say The Frying Pan. The Frying Pan, yeah. The Frying Game that our guest Rusty brought with him and basically wanted to watch. But actually, somebody else suggested it, and we've been trying so hard to mention who's
suggesting these episodes.
And for once, we actually did write it down, and then we forgot to say his name because a lot of episodes have been requested by more than one person.
Right.
So in addition to Rusty requesting it and bringing it, it was also requested by...
Dan Variano. He emailed that one over.
Oh, great. Okay, so thanks, Dan. Sorry about that last week. Although I think if we did spend the extra 30 seconds to say your name, we would have ran out of bandwidth on that one.
Yeah, really.
It's a long episode.
Yeah, we'll try to keep it short today, which we are already failing at because this is by far our longest intro ever. So we're going to get real quick into Lisa the Drama Queen. Is that the one it's called?
Yeah, and let's not forget, who did this one?
Jacob McGuire suggested this one on our Facebook page. So thanks, Jacob. Or maybe not, because we haven't watched it yet. And if you have not seen it yet, you can do so on SimpsonsWorld.com if you're an FX subscriber, and there's other ways to find it out there, I'm sure. You can probably buy the episodes on iTunes or Amazon. So we are going to start watching... I keep forgetting the name of this episode. Lisa the Drama Queen. Oh,
Lisa
the Frying Pan.
Now that I'd watch. Lisa the Drama Queen.
Lisa the Drama Queen. All right, we're going to watch it now.
Lisa, do you want to be best friends? Gosh, this is all happening so fast. I don't know what to say. Say yes, say yes. I'd love to. Woohoo!
So that was Lisa the Drama Queen.
Sure was.
Real quick, we'll just, in case you didn't watch the episode, although you should, even if it's not good, which is not, you should watch it. So it starts off with Lisa is in an art class, and she meets a fellow creative mind with a British accent, played by Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt, yeah. Her name is Juliette.
Juliette, yeah. So they end up becoming fast friends, and they create. You know, they connect on an imaginative and an intellectual level, and they end up creating this fantasy world, like a Terabithia, or something like that. Well, I mean, not exactly like Terabithia, but a fictional land that they play in. And, instead of just having imaginary friends,
they write stories about it.
They write stories, and eventually their imagination starts overwhelming them. They can visualize it. Lisa they both become so enamored with it that they run away. We'll talk about that, but I guess they run away to be part of this world, and it's just very much focused on their imagination kind of just taking over their real world. But it ends up becoming too much for them. They get kidnapped by bullies. It doesn't really have anything to do with the plot, but then they break out.
And then Juliette leaves, never to be heard again.
And then apparently Lisa decides that Juliette took it too far, even though they were both the same. And the episode ends.
There's a lot of...
no B-plot, right?
A lot of dense material there to dig into. No B-plot. I mean, there's really nothing else going on. It's all Lisa all the time.
Yeah.
Which is fine. We have not done a Lisa episode.
So
this is our first real digging into Lisa episode.
Okay,
so right. Homer takes both the kids. There was 3 kids, but only Bart and Lisa are there. They go to this, what was it, the recreation center?
Yeah, something I've never seen before.
Right, and never will see again, I'm sure. Yeah. But all I remember is the slogan on it. Simpsons always has great slogans on their buildings. It was a place to be dropped off at.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah. I like that, and that's exactly what it was. Lisa was dropped off in the art class.
Right.
Bart in his kung fu class. And
taught by comic book guy. It was Shaolin Kung Fu.
But then Bart explicitly references. He goes, "What's a fat tub of lard like you teaching that?" And it was a little weird. And then there was another fat joke very soon after with in the art class, the art teacher, somebody we've never seen again.
Yeah, right.
She randomly yells at a fat student and calls him a fatty. Like, literally, a fatty.
Yeah, I didn't really know what was going on there.
Either one of those, I probably would just ignore. It was just weird that there was these two, not just, fat jokes. I mean, obviously, this show's got fun of a lot of...
Yeah, I'm okay, I guess, with fat jokes that are funny, but with the comic book guy especially, it was just Bart is just like, what are you doing, Tubby? And it was just
it was very mean-spirited. And so was the art teacher. Just
it was just...
It had nothing to do with
There was
his
no
art.
joke.
It was just she was just calling him a fatty.
Like take the scene in Lisa on Ice when Homer is chasing Uter and hitting him with the towel and saying, that kid's got bosoms. The joke isn't that Uter's fat. I mean, I like explaining jokes to people. It's that Homer is taking such glee in chasing down this child.
It's the exact same joke as here, puff puff, or stuff like that.
But here it was just, you're fat.
Yeah,
and that's funny.
It kind of just stood out. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, so Comic Book Guy, in response to that, is like, you don't need to be a master of the body because Kung Fu is about being the master of your mind. Like, attack me on my signal. Yeah. And then everyone in the class jumps him and they beat the crap out of him.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
All right. So I didn't like it. I did like the line, my chi. He like that.
Oh, when he gets hit in the crotch, right? And he says, oh, my chi.
Oh, is that what I just thought it was like a metaphysical joke, like they were attacking his chi.
He definitely got hit in the crotch.
Oh, I like the metaphysical read better. I don't like the dick joke. All right. So here's what I was thinking when I was watching it. Think about season 2, the Touch of Death episode when Bart goes to karate.
2 or 3, yeah.
So think about those scenes compared to this one. They're both the exact same scene. Bart goes to karate, and obviously 20 years is a long time, so they're not going to be the same. Yeah. But just isn't that, like I don't have really a specific thing I want to say here, but they were so much different. Like just the way. Like
the way that they treated
I guess
karate?
It was more of a story. No, just in terms of it actually being a grounded story where Bart was bored because he was talking about a book and they weren't learning the touch of death or punches or kicks.
Right.
As opposed to this where it's kind of just a fat joke and then a balls joke, I guess, and then it's just two completely different shows. It was Bart in karate class. They should have had some similarities, but they didn't.
Yeah, I think in the older episode, it was Bart thinks karate is going to be awesome, and he gets there and he finds out that it's all this like kind of boring training
inner Pete's.
It's not hitting people is the most important thing, and he's like, this sucks, and he goes to play video games. Whereas this was all of a sudden out of nowhere we're in a karate class.
It was a plot.
And it was just a gag. It was just like, what humor can we mine from a karate class? Oh, we'll have Comic Book Guy teach it because he's the last person you would expect to teach karate, and then we'll just have him get beaten up by children.
Yeah, and that was it.
And I thought that the way it happened, he's fighting Bart one-on-one, and then everyone just jumps him, and it happened so suddenly that I was like, oh, like you could have done more with that. I don't know. It could have been like really heighten the drama between the two of them, and then everyone jumps in and make you wait for it.
Pointless.
It was pointless.
All right, so then Lisa and Juliette leave, and they bond outside over her MyPod, listening to Josh Groban. There's two things I want to talk about there. Josh Groban second. First, every time they say MyPod or Maple, it completely takes me out of the show.
I know that that's from an episode that I've never seen.
It's from several. It's anytime they reference iPod, it's MyPod, and anytime they reference Apple, it's Maple. It's the same with the Cosmic Wars. Instead of Star Wars, they say Cosmic Wars.
Yeah, I didn't get that one either. I just why are we doing this?
I don't understand why they do it, and it takes me out every time. Like even if God forbid there's a good episode that we're watching, and I start to begin engrossed in the story. Yeah, I immediately take it out because it's like MyPod. It's so stupid. Like they did 8-track jokes in the early '90s and mid '90s episodes. They didn't call it 7-track.
Right. Well, I don't know if 8-track is trademarked, but iPod certainly is. I don't know if it's a...
Well, they didn't call it Walk Boy. They called it Walk Man.
You don't remember that classic Walk Boy episode of the Simpsons?
There was Talk Boy, but...
Well, there was Talk Boy.
Another show.
Hi, kids, we're home early.
Cool jerk.
Yeah, MyPod. I just, call it just my MP3 player or my music. Just
call it iPod. Just call it iPod. There's nothing wrong with calling it an iPod.
I mean, there might be trademark problems.
There's no you can call it an iPod. You're allowed to call things that are.
You can call things that are things. Yeah, you can. You can. It's using the trademark in the proper way.
They called the kid Pepsi. Peppy. You're allowed to say the names of products. It's
yeah. I don't know.
They're not disparaging it. Maybe in that one episode where that's all about Maple or whatever. But
Maple is really dumb. That's just a silly name.
It's just. I don't understand. I don't get it. Anyway, so I hate that. I'm going to bring it up every single time they do it. So
all right, but let's get into we're two Grobanites, right?
Grobanites.
Let's get into this.
What did you think about the scene where they listen to us and sing along with a Josh Groban song?
I don't know much about Josh Groban. Pretty much everything I know about him is from like the comedy work that he does.
Yeah, like on the Soup and Comedy Bang Bang.
Yeah, Comedy Bang Bang, and like Tim and Eric he was on.
Yeah, and he's funny. He's great.
He's very funny. I think mostly because it's like, hey, it's Josh Groban. You don't expect this from him, but he's got this like really great personality.
Great smile.
He's game for anything.
Big
He's
smile.
a handsome man.
He Grobaned on me. Like grow, but
I got it. I'm gonna Groban that reference. See what I did? I used the other part of the word. Okay, anyway.
Like the Native Americans, you use the whole part of the Groban.
All of the Groban gets used. Oh, man. I like him. I like his comedy stuff. I don't really know his music all that well, but it seemed like Lisa, it makes sense that Lisa would like Josh Groban. That's the kind of thing I could see her being into.
I thought it was exactly like in the early 90s episodes where she had the Corey fascination. And like that was topical. It wasn't, usually we say they should only reference things that have already been around for a while to make sure it's, not going to fade. Like that Corey thing, it's very topical. Almost nobody's going to get that shit anymore. Like our listeners are 18 to 25
young ones.
They might not even get the Corey stuff, or if they get it, they won't fully appreciate.
Let's explain the Corey. There were a lot of Coreys running around in the late 80s, early 90s. You had Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
You got Corey Haim.
You had...
and that was it. Yeah. And they were friends, and they were in License to Drive.
Yeah, and the girls were obsessed with it, and there was a thing where she would talk. So here's the difference, I think, between this and the Groban scene.
Yeah.
Again, I could totally see these girls being obsessed with Josh Groban, being Grobanites.
Right.
So we listen to them, and they sing along for like a full minute. We have to listen to this.
That's what I didn't like.
So the Corey thing, there's one where she calls the Corey Hotline, and he's like, here's me reading the paper. And he's like reading it in the sarcastic, cute
it's
boy.
in the newspaper today.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, even though that's pretty much like what exists. That was, but it was slightly exaggerated.
That was a commentary, though, because there were those ridiculous 900 numbers where you could call and listen to the New Kids on the Block, talk about whatever, and you'd pay $2 a minute to do it. And it's saying, like, hey, those things are worthless.
And it was slightly exaggerated for comic effect. Like, I'm sure there wasn't the New Kids on the Block reading the headlines.
I mean, I call it every day to get the headlines. You gotta get those.
that
was the block news.
News kids on the block.
News kids on the block. We got that.
That was your news source?
That was it.
Well, but so this was just them singing a song, and it was just like there was one joke where Willie puts the rakes in his ears and Wiggum has the guns in his ears.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
That was the only joke that went with that whole. I mean, I guess it was important for the story that was their bonding, but I didn't want to watch it for a minute.
It was their bonding moment, I guess, as far as their friendship went. But yeah, why do we need a minute that was basically just Emily Blunt and Yardley Smith doing Josh Groban karaoke?
Yeah,
it didn't make any sense.
I don't want to watch the karaoke. If it is for their bonding, at least use the cinema, the direction. Do close-ups of them, show them looking at each other.
Yeah.
Show the friendship growing out of that. Don't show Willie putting rakes in his ears.
Yeah, like, is it a serious moment? Like, is this an emotional beat or is it a jokey beat? Yeah. And it can be both, but not if you're gonna like.
It can't be neither.
Can't be neither. Or maybe it was.
It was.
Josh Groban's obviously a real person, whereas the Corey Hotline was generic enough that it was
we didn't know which Corey.
Yeah, I mean there were a lot of teen heartthrobs named Corey running around, and
there's only one Grobes.
There's only one Grobes, and we all know that. And it just
seemed... one in Grovely.
The one Grobe to rule them all. It just seemed weird to me that it was Josh Groban, and like he didn't have a bigger role in the episode at the end. Like I thought maybe they would meet Josh Groban at some point. It would
have been nice if he was in the episode. Yeah, but no, you're right. No, it was that's what started their relationship, and there was one other reference to it later, which actually I was like, oh, they brought that back. I completely forgot about it already. Yeah, you're right. It should have been more of a through line if they were gonna devote a whole goddamn minute to it.
Okay, so Lisa and Juliette become buddies. And Lisa gets all excited about her first play date with her.
Yeah.
Let's put a pin in the larger issue that's going on there. And I just want to talk about they're in the Quickie Mart, and Lisa's kind of obsessing over what candy she should bring on their play date. And she's there with Bart. And I don't know if you noticed this, but the end of the scene was Apu recommending that she get an Almond Joy because, it's like you have a candy for yourself, but then, look, it's 2 in 1 because Almond Joys come like 2 in a pack, like a Twix kind of thing.
Right.
And then if you notice in the background, there's like a wall of candy, like at a convenience store.
Yeah.
Almond Joy was like fully articulated in the same like style as the Almond Joy packaging, and it was the only one that was like that. That was clearly Almond Joy product placement.
So you're pretty confident it was product placement?
90% sure it was product placement.
I would almost be inclined to agree if it wasn't this show. I feel like if it might just have been like them telegraphing the joke, like, hey, we're gonna have an Almond Joy punchline.
But it wasn't even telegraphing the joke, because I noticed it after Apu had already like talked about Almond Joy. And also, what is the joke? There's no joke. Almond Joy are 2 in a pack.
That's weird. They don't really do. I mean, if anything, you'd think it'd be Butterfinger.
I've never. That's a very good point.
Is it owned by the same company? I know Mounds and Almond Joy are connected. Is Butterfly like?
Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't.
Just sometimes your fingers feel buttery. Is it like?
Sometimes they don't.
Is it the same company? Like, why are they?
Maybe, but
That's so weird. I've never seen
in 26 years. I've never seen that happen on The Simpsons.
I've never seen a full product placement. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have that. They did call Peppy Pepsi, but
they did. But you never actually saw him like tattooed with the Pepsi logo and like drinking a Pepsi in slow motion. I mimed drinking a Pepsi for only you because no one else could see. I
appreciate it.
If I drank a Pepsi, it would look a lot like this.
I didn't quite understand what you were trying to convey, and then I was like,
oh, the Pepsi.
Yeah,
all right.
That's how you.
Oh God.
No, that was really weird and jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it was product placement. That's a really weird thing if it was. I've never seen it. I agree.
It was bizarre.
There was one line in that scene I didn't like where Bart's suggesting Lisa's like, what candy should I pick? And Bart's suggesting, and he says like Charleston Chew. And she yells and she says, what is this, Brooklyn in the 1950s?
Yeah.
And like I get the reference, and I don't even not like the reference. Charleston Chew, that's a 50. But it was such a mouthful of you ever have like, you ever see those jokes, or you even try to make a joke where the idea in your head is pretty, like, I want to make a connection to Brooklyn in the 1950s.
The idea is going faster than your mouth can go.
But there's no way to make it work. It's just like, what is this, Brooklyn in the 1950s? It's like, it's just so on the nose, and just it's just an awkward mouthful. Like,
she could have even said like, what is this, 50s Brooklyn? It's slightly better.
Or say somebody like, what are you, Mel Zetz, or like somebody who is associated with the 50s Brooklyn Charleston Chew type of. I can't think off the top of my head. That's why I said Mel Zetz. Yeah. I don't know who Mel Zetz is.
I don't know who Mel Zetz is either.
So you want to go back to where the pin you put in? You want to pull it out?
Let's pull that pin out. So this is running. Oh no! My pin balloon. Okay, so yeah, we back to where we pulled our pin out here. There's an undercurrent in this episode of Lisa and Juliette, their budding friendship being a little more than friendship.
Yeah, I thought...
Which is weird, because they're 8-year-old girls.
Yeah, it popped in my head a couple of times. I pushed it down. I ignored it because they are 8-year-old girls, and I don't think they were going there.
Yeah.
And having any, like, sexual tension there. I think it's sexual. Just kind of...
It's just...
I think a romantic tension.
Yeah.
I don't think it was there. I think it's just natural that anytime you have such an intimate relationship between two friends, like, they had to cram it in there because they only had a few minutes to establish this powerful relationship.
Jack, we're two friends. I'm just saying.
We are. And anytime you have two people who who obviously care so much about each other, it's always going to seem like maybe they want more.
There's like a will they, won't they?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Like maybe one side wants something a little different.
Yeah. And
I don't know where we're going with this.
I do, and I don't like it.
Oh.
And no, so I feel like just anytime you do you show a very strong relationship, that intimacy is because it's already so associated with romantic and sexual stuff like that.
Right.
I think there's really no way to divorce it. That at least the connection. I don't think you have to have it there. I think you might feel like it could be there. I don't think it was there, and I think we could safely say that I don't think they were intending it.
2 points on that. I do think they were intending it.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the extent of saying, like, Lisa is a lesbian who has a romantic crush on this other 8-year-old girl, but, like, maybe Lisa's just exploring some stuff. And I think that, okay, so here's my 2 points. The first was the way they frame a lot of the relationship, at least visually, is a little suggestive. So Lisa and Juliette have a sleepover.
Yeah.
And they have a conversation that reminded me, like, it was very much a define the relationship type conversation. Like, if you're dating someone for a while, you need to have the talk, like, are we, going steady? Are we exclusive here? Right. It seemed like that's what it was. And Lisa was like, oh, now I have a best friend. Yeah. in the sense that like someone would be excited if they had a girlfriend or something like that.
Right.
And the way it was shot is the two of them were sleeping side by side, and the camera, before the act break happened, was like right over them, and it looked as if they were laying in one bed.
Super bad.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, there was some sexual tension in Superbad as well.
Okay, so this is why I actually really like that scene. Lisa says, "Oh, I hope I have a new best friend," and she goes, "Wait, did I say that out loud?" And I was like, I didn't like that because it's like, "Hey, I'm spelling out the joke. I said something."
Oh yeah, no, definitely not. I don't like that at all.
But then I liked it. It won me over because then she goes, and it's okay. And then she smiled, and then Juliette also smiled. Like you could, it wasn't one sided. Like they both were in. And
yeah, I liked that.
So it was a very sweet scene, and again, I can see like I was totally thinking it. I was like, is there like romantic tension? And
right.
I think the only reason we're feeling it is because it's like a chimpanzee and human DNA. Like 99% of a really true friendship and a romantic friendship, like 99% of it is pretty much the same. And that's why like even the play date, like she was nervous about a play date, and it was like, oh, just like when you're nervous about meeting a girl. And
right, exactly.
Yeah. But I'm saying, what my point is,
they kept using the term date, like play date.
Exactly. But I think you can do that with a friend, like with a friendship. I think you can make those comparisons because it really is exactly the same without there having to be this weird underlying romantic tension. I think because a true, like, intimate, real relationship between two people, even if it's platonic, is 99% pretty much the same. You know, on an emotional and intellectual, you're on the same page. Like when you're best friends with someone, you're on the same page with them
in
every single respect. One of the only differences with a romantic relationship is that you're also physically attracted to them.
Right.
So that's why I think I can divorce the two of them completely, even though it was
that's fair.
Thinking it because I think you can have all those things and still not want to bone.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
And I hope I'm not disappointing any Wii fans out there by saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I think watching this episode, you'll get the idea in your head, but I do think it was a little suggestive, and that brings me to the second point that I wanted to bring up. This episode is a parody of the Peter Jackson film Heavenly Creatures, which I've never seen.
Yeah.
You have, right?
A long time ago, yeah.
Okay. Was there like a sexual attraction between those two characters?
So
if it's a spoiler, don't tell me.
I don't remember because I haven't seen it in so long, and I remember parts of the movie, but I remember it didn't really stick with me. I was watching it in a dorm bedroom with a bunch of friends. So like I wasn't really watching it with a critical eye. A lot of it didn't stick with me. Yeah. They were a little older. They were about 15, 16, I want to say. It was Kate Winslet and Melanie Lizinski, something like that. Linsky. She was on Two and a Half Men and a few other shows. She's on that new show.
That was Charlie Sheen.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Great career. Great career. No, she's the wife on that new show with the guy from The League, the HBO show.
Oh, Togetherness.
Mark
Duplass. Yeah.
So it was her and Kate Winslet, and I want to say that because they were older and they were teenagers. If I had to guess, I would say there was some kind of underlying sexual tension, especially I think one liked the other one more. If I remember correctly, but I don't know. I can't really 100% say.
Well, it could have just all been a reference to that movie, is what I'm saying. Yeah, that's the point.
I mean, it definitely. I mean, it was such a. I don't know if I'd call it a parody. I guess it was, but it was such a retelling of that story. Is very, very, very similar. So that a lot of those points probably would come up naturally, even if they were unintentional. So let's talk about Marge for a second.
I would love nothing more than to talk about Marge.
So she's so excited. She was so happy that like Lisa finally found a friend, and she. I really liked all those scenes. Like it was.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about all the Marge scenes in this episode.
It was so sweet. Like it was very heartfelt. Like at one point in that bedroom scene we were just talking about. Yeah. Where she says, "Are you my best friend?" Marge in the background. Marge is listening through the door, and she actually lets out like a woohoo. She's so happy that Lisa finally found her. It was like it was straight up adorable. I can't think of I actually said out loud, "Aw." Like I can't think of how many times I've actually said "aw" out loud at any show, let alone a season 20 episode episode of The Simpsons.
Right, and there was another scene at the end where she tried to also do the like fantasy world thing with them, and Lisa was like, "Mom, what are you doing?"
And I was so mad because
I know I was hurt. I was like, "Oh, Marge is just trying to be included, Lisa."
Exactly, and I was gonna like go into a tirade about like, "What the fuck, Lisa? That was so mean." But it was really understandable because
it made sense because she's absorbed. She's absorbed in this world and her new friend,
and she has a friend. You know, you beat it, Mom, and like, so it was completely grounded, and it was perfectly reasonable for Lisa to react that way. But I'm so mad at her because it's just like Marge was being such a good mom, and you know, getting yelled. But that's what the good moms get yelled at.
Good moms get yelled at, and Marge,
I love you.
We
Mom.
love you, baby.
I liked in in that bedroom scene too. I don't know if you noticed, but there was a lot of details in Lisa's bedroom that you don't typically see. Like in the background is her saxophone in its like leather case.
I did not notice that.
And there's a music stand with music sheets on. And not only are they extra details, because there was a Happy Little Elves poster, which is usually there.
Well, that's a deep cut, pretty much.
And that's a deep cut, and it also shows Lisa's still a little girl. Yeah. But the music stuff in particular, I thought was interesting. I wonder if they were just trying to make it like, we actually have a full scene in her bedroom. We better populate it with items, or if they were specifically putting these music things in to tie in with the whole theme of the creativity and imagination. That was pretty much the backbone of the episode. Right. So I thought that was, if that's what they were doing, I thought that was I'd like to applaud them on actually giving
a damn.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the animation in general in this episode, because I actually thought it was pretty strong. Because we haven't really talked about the fantasy world yet.
Yeah.
But it was very lushly animated, and it looked cool.
Yeah. No, I can't think of any specific non-fantasy things that I can't think of anything that stood out to me besides the Lisa's bedroom.
Well, there was one that I noticed. There's a scene where Homer and Marge are just sitting at the kitchen table, and Marge has this weird smiley face mug. Did you notice this?
I didn't.
It was not just a plain mug. It had a smiley face on it for no reason. And I thought maybe it was going to come in as a joke, and it didn't. It was just a thing that was there.
So maybe I'm reading too into the music stuff. Maybe they did a good job this time of actually doing detailed work.
Yes.
And this was like right before the HD took over.
Yeah.
So it would be nice if now that they are HD, they would take more advantage and make the world a little bit more realistic. Put more shit on the mugs and stuff like that.
We want 3D animated, realistic looking Simpsons is what we want.
Well, I think it's like 3D animated mugs.
Yeah, that's what we do. We want state of the art mugs in every scene.
Like The Simpsons has been trailing in the Emmy for best animated mug category for too long.
It's just been Archer winning it over and over again.
Yeah. So I guess we should also talk about the fantasy animation. It didn't really do anything for me. I did not like it, but is exactly what I expected from fantasy animation.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
There's dragons, and then there's the tunicorn, which I like the idea of a tunicorn. That's cute.
Right.
There's the giraffopus.
It was like a cute animated little girl fantasy world.
Yeah.
And they like adapted characters into things. Like Homer was an ogre, and Kearney, one of the bullies, was a dragon, and the other two were also ogres.
We've seen that, but I like the ogre Homer looked very much like the Angry Dad webcomic.
It did, yeah. Homer, I noticed that,
which isn't a bad thing. But you're right; they did a good job translating the models.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do that, it was fine. It was not.
Yeah.
Not objectionable.
So let's talk about the fantasy stuff. You know what's really interesting? This episode aired in 2009, right?
2009, yeah.
So this was before Game of Thrones, the TV show, really took off, and I'm pretty sure Game of Thrones is the reason that fantasy became big again. I mean, Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, was already. It didn't, even though everybody loved those movies and those movies were a huge hit. It didn't get people like.
There wasn't like a fantasy boom after Lord of the Rings.
Nerds.
There definitely has been with Game of Thrones.
Nerds in a broad sense, even people like me and you.
I'm not a nerd, sir. I'm a jock.
Right.
I was a captain of our bowling team. Maybe you don't remember.
Pardon? No, it's people. Fantasy has been around forever. People are always reading, but I feel like since Game of Thrones, it's okay for regular folk like my mom or people I went to high school with who I wouldn't normally associate. It's kind of surprising that they're big Game of Thrones fans or even like Walking Dead fans. Genre. This is a larger conversation, but genre fiction has become more mainstream in the last 10 years. But
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, so fantasy was not big when this episode aired, so it was interesting that they chose it to do it, because Heavenly Creatures was 10 years, 15 years before this.
It was 94. It was 15
yeah, so it was 15 years
this
before
episode.
this episode even aired.
Yeah.
So it wasn't timely for that, and then it just, why would you pick a fantasy themed show then? It was almost ahead of its time. Well, you know what, speaking of ahead of its time...
We're going to travel through time?
that too. Krod Mandoon on Comedy Central.
And the Flaming Sword of Fire.
And so that was on for one season. It got canceled. Had low ratings. The entire show was to do a silly, like a
fantasy parody show,
like a slapsticky fantasy parody of fantasy shows.
Yeah,
and it got canceled because nobody watched it, and it's a shame.
It was a good show.
Not only was it a good show, it wasn't great, but it was good. It could have been great, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
But if it was just waited like 3 years. Because it's basically a comedy Game of Thrones. Yeah. People would have, like, a more mainstream audience would have actually got what they were talking about. It had Kevin Hart before he was big.
Oh my God, Kevin Hart.
He was already fairly...
he was already a known stand-up, but now he's like, Kevin Hart, star of a million bajillion movie.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's his actual title.
They had Kevin Hart. They had this great idea. They had the guy from from Little Britain.
Yeah, whose name I can't remember.
Matt.
He was in Bridesmaids too.
He was in Alice in Wonderland. He was Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Matt English.
Matt the guy.
He was in it, and it was a funny show, and it was just...
That was a good show. I had forgotten all about it until you brought it up.
So it's funny that we should do a Krod Mandoon podcast, a Crodcast.
A Crodcast. Done.
We will talk about that show that aired for 2 months.
In 2007
years ago. It's funny. So that was ahead of its time. So this was ahead of its time. Why were they doing fantasy?
I don't know, but dig up Krod Mandoon if you can. It's probably on YouTube or something. It's a good watch.
It's a good watch. They should put it on Netflix. Why everything's on Netflix? Why is that not on Netflix?
I don't know. I think Heavenly Creatures was actually on Netflix too for a little while, and I meant to watch it. It was in my queue.
What are you gonna do? If you watched everything in your queue, you wouldn't have time to do anything.
Yeah, I'd never get to my U. It didn't make sense. Like Q then U. I don't know. It didn't. I couldn't. Honestly, I couldn't think of the actual letter.
Oh my God, he's coming on to me.
Oh, I get it. Oh no, cut this. I didn't mean it that way. This episode is already weird. I legitimately couldn't think of the letter after Q. It's R. I got it now.
Yeah. Before we move on, there was one of the early scenes of them bonding as they go to see folk art, like a folk art museum.
Yeah.
And they play Wipeout, but it
was ha 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 folk art.
What did you think of that?
I actually liked that. I thought that was funny just because it was so completely random. Yeah. And Wipeout's a great song.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was hilarious or it was a great joke. I didn't chuckle, and here's why I think it works. Yeah. It's not an easy joke. The biggest problem with The Simpsons now, these episodes, they're always going for the lowest hanging fruit. Yeah. And the folk, there's no connection.
There's no connection at all, yeah.
So the idea that, that's what they came up with, that's not low hanging fruit. I'm not saying it's the tastiest fruit. Right. But it's weird that they even made that connection.
It's one of those weird, star fruits or something. Like, every once in a while, you're like, I like that that's at the grocery store.
Exactly. You're not going to throw it in every fruit salad.
I don't eat it.
But, yeah. No, it was just for that. I was just surprised that they went with something so obvious, as opposed to, I don't know, just if it was following the trend of a lot of the episodes we've watched so far, I feel like it would play Art School Girlfriend by Stone Temple Pilots for 6 seconds, and it would just be them looking at art and enjoying it. Yeah, like, I got a girlfriend, she goes to art. And that would be the scene, and I wouldn't be I was more surprised that we got the Wipeout thing as opposed to something like that.
Yeah, as a more on the nose song. Instead, we got a completely random song, so we like that.
I liked also that we sang just enough of the song to probably avoid having to pay for it.
We're okay. Scott Weiland, come at us, all right?
No, don't. He's the type of person to
cut all this. We like Stone Temple Pilots. Tiny music from the Vatican gift shop's a really good album.
Please don't burn down Wii Studios.
Oh God, we just made our final payments.
Yeah, with that folk art scene too, she meets Juliette. She meets Juliette at her school, which is like a fancy prep school, and there's a sign on the door I really liked. It said a scholarship-free environment.
I think I missed that, actually.
They didn't really have time for this, so I'm not going to give it shit, but they didn't really explore the the class differences between obviously not only because she has a British accent, so she sounds wealthier, but she was clearly from a slightly higher class, not only a higher class financially, but more intellectual. Her father was a what was his deal?
Her father was a John Grisham scholar.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, I thought that was really
like a
funny.
literary, like a stuffy old professor, but of
John Grisham.
Like, yeah, supermarket novels.
The king of the airport legal thriller.
Yeah, they didn't really do anything like that was very similar to when Lisa's Rival, where she meets the dad and they play the anagram song.
Right.
That wasn't really what they were doing here, which is great. It's great that they're doing something different.
Yeah, at first I thought it was just like a random one-off thing, like, oh, he's a John Grisham scholar. But I loved that they kept bringing it back, and it was just getting more and more ridiculous.
Yeah.
So later on, they're actually having dinner with the father, and he does like a reading from the firm.
Yeah, was that? And I guess that was probably a real reading.
I think so. Yeah, the character's name was the same. But then I loved. Let's listen to track 3 from James Horner's score for the Pelican Brief.
Yeah.
Reviewing the brief.
You're right. That was good. I mean, I really like the joke because reviewing the brief is such a lame, mundane. That's the exact type of title a track on a soundtrack has. Yeah. But I was wondering if it was maybe a little too inside. Like I feel like if my mom was watching that, it would go over her head.
Oh,
it was a little
maybe.
It was a little Entourage, inside Hollywood joke.
I do listen to film soundtracks, so
of course, me too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we just like it because we're weird.
It's our Beethoven.
That's right. That's true. Yeah. Hans Zimmer is our new Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
I would say he's more of our Georges Bizet, but Bizet.
Oh, Co-Queens Helvetica and Valedictoria. We're so glad you're finally here.
I'm a giraffeopus. I'm uncomfortable in water and on land.
There was one interaction. So yeah, I was surprised they didn't really do much with the differences between having the stuffy dad and again, like it wasn't quite the same scene as with the Jeremis Iron. There was a scene where Homer thought because he had a PhD that he was a medical doctor and asked him to look at the lump on his back.
Right, which was the same joke from A Star Is Burns.
It was a gummy bear.
It was a gummy bear. Here was chewing gum.
Yeah. So you didn't like that?
No, not really.
I thought I did. Now that I think about it,
because then the joke was. When they did it in A Star Is Burns, the joke was Homer's so stupid he didn't realize he had candy stuck to him. But then on this one, it was the PhD father takes the gum off his back and he says, "This is chewing gum," and Homer's like, "You're overpriced," or something like that. Yeah, and it was just like, what? You just asked him 2 seconds ago to do this.
Yeah. Also in that scene, they play Josh Groban again. It's the only other time we see Groban, which is weird. I like the idea that they're like, let's listen to his top 12 most popular downloads. Yeah. And I thought that was a good universal cultural joke, which the Simpsons did really well back in the day, and they don't do so much now. But like the idea that like we don't really listen to albums or anything. Right. If we were like even greatest hits, we don't have greatest hits. We have most
popular downloads. Yeah.
So I thought that was just a nice, as compared to like when Skinner talks about Facebook. I mean, I like the idea that, especially remember this was 5 years ago, just when like the Facebook was becoming big with everybody as opposed to college. I like the idea that he was like, I was looking up the students. Oh, by the way, I liked your pictures to Yosemite, because that is a weird thing that like now everybody sees everybody's vacation photos.
Right, everyone knows everything.
That was kind of like what Bryce said a few months ago with the it was a stand-up comic just explaining everything.
Yeah, and really, just pointing out the foibles of life.
Yeah, so I didn't like that quite as much, but the most popular downloads was not shoehorned in. It was seamlessly sewed in.
It was sewed in. Okay, so we see Lisa and Juliette are they're at like a yogurt place in the mall. And they're writing like a fantasy story, and Nelson is there and looks over and says, "Oh, a girl's playing with dolls and fantasy stuff. Isn't that right, headless Darth Vader?" And he's got a toy, and he also has a Malibu Stacy with no arms wrapped in duct tape or hockey tape. That was funny. I liked that Nelson, points out like, "Oh, girls play with dolls and that's lame," but then like boys play with action figures and it's basically the same thing. But Nelson was literally talking to no one.
Oh, I didn't even think
he was
about
just
that.
like. It was just pan over to Nelson just talking to the camera, basically.
I feel like a lot of Nelson has a lot of like asides. What is that called in theater when they
breaking the fourth wall?
When they just talk to the audience. There's a word for that, like a fancy word.
It's not breaking the fourth wall?
Is it soliloquy? I feel like it's something. Maybe it's just an aside. I mean, breaking the fourth wall is what it's doing. But no, it's not even breaking the fourth wall.
That's not what Nelson was doing.
But I feel like he gets a lot of those.
But it was just, there was no other character there. He was just talking for the sake of talking, and it was like, hey, we need a comedy beat here. Let's just plug Nelson in.
You're right. I didn't even think of that because I actually loved that gag because
Yeah.
It was one of those things that are so specific, but yet so universal.
Headless Darth Vader.
Like, because I grew, like, action figures was what I did. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I played video games, but it's funny, I played more video games in my 20s than I did as a kid and as a teenager.
Yeah.
I played with I played with them probably longer than I should have, but that's all I love playing with my action figures.
I'm still playing with action figures.
Yeah, right now during the podcast, it's very distracting.
Wolverine is here attacking Spider-Man.
But like that was such a specific thing because if your action figure did lose an arm, which they did because they were pieces of shit, you didn't throw it out. It wasn't like something you would think of. Like now, it's broken, and throw it out.
Yeah,
but
it's like no, that's battle damage.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
Exactly. And you would just have an arm, or you would just kind of pretend he had an arm.
Yeah.
I remember I had so many action figures that were missing legs or arms. I had a Dennis Nedry action figure from Jurassic Park. Dennis Nedry was Wayne Knight.
Wayne Knight's character.
Newman
He steals the embryos.
Yeah, and it's funny. First of all, his action figure, it was like this cool, skinny guy with sunglasses. He kind of looked like Wexler from Resident Evil.
Oh, okay, Wesker.
Yeah. He looked exactly like him. He had like a gun.
Yeah.
And it was like, I guess they just didn't want to make a fat action figure, which is like...
What a blow to Wayne Knight's ego.
But the action figure split up into parts. It literally ripped into parts because that way when you're playing with your dinosaur and you want to pretend that the dinosaur ate him, you could rip them up. I also
awesome.
I had a Lance Hendrickson, I had a Bishop Aliens action figure, same thing. You could rip them apart.
Yeah, let's just talk about action figures.
Which is, if you think about it, it's really graphic for like an 8-year-old.
Yeah, it's pretty graphic,
but,
well, Aliens wasn't really a kid's movie. It's fun. It's weird that they even had like kids' toys.
Right. Well, anyway, so first of all, it was weird that Dennis Nedry, I had a sexy, like sleek Wayne Knight action figure.
Hello, Newman.
Dotson. Got Dotson over here. See, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Like this, nobody cares about this tangent. No, but anyway, I lost the pieces. Like his chest and his arms. So I literally just had like a pair of legs, a spine, and then Wayne Knight's sexy sunglass covered head.
That's awesome, actually.
But I still used it all the time.
Of course.
And I was just like, he's like, hey guys, how's it going?
It's me, no torso.
but they wouldn't acknowledge that he'd have. Also, you know what else? I was always frustrated how all the action figures always had like their guns were like painted in, like they weren't part of the extra gun that you could put in their hand.
You had to pay extra for those.
Like he just had like a handgun, or like I said, Nedry had a gun and like a shoulder holster.
Okay, but it was like painted on.
Yeah, so I always had to like when he was fighting the dinosaurs, I always had to pretend he was using that gun, but I could, I was just like seeing it in my mind.
Yeah.
I feel like this is relevant because it's kind of what the girls were doing.
Sure. It's relevant-ish.
But like it's funny how I would base my action figure stories on what was painted on. So like I had Muldoon too from Jurassic Park,
right?
And he had a knife, like a long knife on his leg painted on. So I always had him killing the dinosaurs with his knife.
You're listening to the Jurassic Park action figure podcast. I had the T-Rex, which could take a piece of his flesh off and like saw the rib cage.
Yeah, I had the same with
cool,
the Triceratops. What was also frustrating is when you would mix the real action figures with the McDonald's Happy Meal toys, which were always like kind of smaller.
Yeah.
So I always had like Batman, and then I had like a
tiny
McDonald's
Batman.
Yeah, I had like a tiny Batgirl, and they're like, oh no, Joker put her in the shrink ray.
Oh, Batgirl.
Yeah, and like I had even like the McDonald's Batmobile. You can't fit Batman in the Batmobile.
No.
Not
at all.
Like, can't they make it easier to be a kid? That's all I'm trying to say.
Just like one action figure size for everyone.
Yeah, I guess that's what they did with Wayne Knight, and I guess we don't know what we want here.
We don't know what we want.
I did have a fat action figure. I had Vern from Ninja Turtles, and they made him a slob.
No, not Vern.
Not Vern.
Vern was the camera guy.
The one that Whoopi Goldberg was in the new movie.
I haven't seen the movie.
I can't remember his name, but it was the boss.
Yeah. April O'Neil's boss. That's like Channel 5.
And it was really insulting because not only was he heavy set, but they like put toilet paper on his shoe, and he had like mustard stains on. They made him like a real fat slob. And it's like, I got this action figure. I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this thing?
Were you like, I really need April's boss?
Like I'm not joking. He had a big sandwich in his hand that was and he's mid bite. Anytime I had him interacting with my other action figures, I had to explain I'm mid bite, but by the way, I'm also in the scene.
I love it. You had to explain it. Hey everyone, I'm eating a sandwich. Let me just explain what's going on, and then I'm gone.
Well, and because I had all of my action figures interact, I would pull them all together, and I had Casey Jones from Ninja Turtles. I had him be Jason Voorhees, and I had him rip apart and murder all the other action figures.
Oh man,
as a dark child.
I would only mix up my like Marvel and DC figures, and I'd always do like DC versus Marvel.
I never had. I actually didn't
like
have
Secret Wars type things.
Yeah, I never had any superhero action figures besides. I had tons of Batman.
I had a bunch. Of
I had a Flash. I had 2 Flashes. That's the other thing. When you have a repeat of an act, when you get somebody gives, and then you have to
Flash
do
reverse Flash.
You had to do. I did have a reverse Flash. I painted him blue. I called him Proto Flash.
Whoa!
He had plasma powers.
Called DC Comics.
But I got lazy. I only painted his ankle. So
wait a minute. Let's backtrack. You said you painted him blue, but you only painted his ankle.
It was just his ankle, and then the rest I kind of pictured blue. If that makes sense.
Nice. Okay. You had a vivid imagination.
Yeah, I guess. Or no friends, one or the other.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, so like, okay, so let's, speaking about action figures and our imagination and everything, so the theme of this show was, and the same with Heavenly Creatures to an extent, it was basically about Lisa's creativity. I really liked this aspect of the show. There have been so many Lisa episodes, and a lot of them are based in the fact that she's the creative one and the artistic one. Right. I don't think they've ever done an episode, and again, this is season 20, so I'm surprised they hadn't done one yet. This is one where her imagination and her creativity was almost like the villain. It was like kind of overwhelming. Like there's been several episodes about her relationship to her creativity. Yeah, especially like with Bleeding Gums Murphy and stuff, and you know how she was kind of depressed or whatever, stuff like that. But I don't think there's ever one where there was like people were concerned that her creativity was actually getting in the way of her day-to-day reality. I like that.
Do you think that's what was going on in this episode? Because jumping a little bit to the end, I did not understand the conflict that happens at the end of this episode.
So I understand. I think that was the conflict. I jumping ahead. I don't understand the resolution. I don't know
okay, maybe that's what I'm saying.
But I do think that the point of the episode, was that her imagination was she was disappearing more and more into this fantasy world.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you there.
To the point where she ran away from home.
Right.
I think I feel like that's what it was. It was like it was she kind of just. It doesn't really
she's trying to run into her own imagination to like shield herself from the world. It doesn't really fit for an
8-year-old girl, but it's Lisa, so it's okay. Obviously it's like something where it's an addiction problem with real people where they kind of just keep escaping into their video games or their
action figures.
By the way, all that action figure talk, that was last week.
This this morning. Yeah, I sit at my desk at work and just play with my action figures. I got paid the big bucks.
Yeah, no, I think that was, and again, that's why I really liked this story. I thought it was original. I thought it was great that Lisa's creativity was actually almost the villain.
Yeah.
Although I guess it was more Juliette because Juliette was the catalyst for this imagination.
Should we just jump to the end and talk about the resolution of the Juliette kind of story?
Sure.
Okay, so Juliette gets like really into this fantasy world, and Lisa's kind of along for the ride. Juliette wants to run away from home. They go hide out in this like old abandoned fast food place. And then some stuff happens that we'll probably get to with the bullies, Jimbo and Dolphin Kearney. But at the end, Lisa is just like, I can't go back there anymore to that fantasy world. I'm sorry. I need to stay in the real world. And it comes from out of nowhere.
No, literally out of nowhere.
There's nothing that had happened in the previous 21 minutes that was like, Lisa's having a problem with how the like fantasy is progressing.
It was the exact same non-ending as the Lady Gaga episode where like the whole time she was being such a great resistance to Lady Gaga. Like, I'm not buying into your self-help bullshit. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay.
All of a sudden it's the end. All right.
Yeah, and like, especially because this scene literally comes right after they use their imaginations to break out of their third act prison.
It's something that had just helped them, and then suddenly Lisa's just like, I can't do this anymore.
It was out of nowhere.
And then also they say like Juliette was crazy. Like Homer actually calls her Princess Nutjob at the end. Yeah. What did she do that was crazy?
Lisa calls her cuckoo.
Yeah, but like Lisa and her did this together. And it was Juliette's idea to run away from home, but that's not crazy.
She was only slightly more crazy. I mean, if they were doing a beat-by-beat riff on Heavenly Creatures, I think one of the characters is obviously more than the other. Right. But this one wasn't that. And
no, it just happened out of nowhere.
The only thing I can see is like Lisa was like, oh man, my imagination got me into that predicament in the first place. But it wasn't really said, and it was like... It was a kind of a ridiculous situation anyway. You can't really blame your imagination for bullies locking you in a cage.
Right.
It was literally out of nowhere, and it was a shame because, like I said, I really liked this creativity angle. I thought it was an original story. I liked the emotional beats. I liked their friendship. I liked the march. In terms of story, I really was into this episode, and then that ending just just took all the air out of the emotion balloon.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did. I wasn't as into this episode as I think you were, but there was a lot of things I didn't like in this episode. Yeah. And one of them was, well, okay, there was a scene that started off that I liked. It's when Homer and Marge go to see Principal Skinner.
Yeah.
Because Skinner is worried that Lisa's spending all of her time like writing about this fantasy stuff and all that. And Homer keeps talking about Bart because he's just so used to like being here talking about Bart. He has no idea that they're talking about Lisa. Yeah. I liked that. That was funny.
Memory, yeah.
Yeah, that was a very Homer thing.
Yeah.
I didn't like the Facebook rant that Skinner went on, but you talked about that already. And then at the end of that scene, Homer just gets up and he's like, "Okay, officer."
Yeah.
What the fuck was that?
He said, like, I get, like, it's funny, they say Homer gets stupider every year.
Yeah.
It's not a question. But, like,
this is Principal Skinner. Yeah. He's been a very large part of their lives.
He was in a band with him.
Yeah. Homer won a Grammy.
Grammy with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really weird. Like,
it was really weird.
Like, they put that joke in there, like, isn't Homer stupid? It's like, no, don't do that.
Well, I mean, the beat... saying that Homer is there and he doesn't realize they're talking about Lisa and not Bart. That's fine. Why do you need to one-up it and then be like, Homer doesn't even know he's at a school and thinks he's in a jail?
Yeah, is that it? He thinks he's in a prison because Bart? I
have no idea. It was just, I think it was just like, look how dumb Homer is, right?
I've never been on the page of a lot of people say, oh man, Homer got too stupid. Like when in that 138th episode, like Homer's I thought, you know, by then, obviously, we love season 7. I don't think Homer was too stupid at all. But this was too fucking stupid.
Yeah, no, way too stupid. This was Bonfire of the Manatees level horrible. I thought that scene at least.
It was it was as off. I don't know. He was just stupid.
Okay, and then shortly after the scene in the school, there's a scene where they're worried Lisa's going to run away. Yeah. I guess that idea had already been floated. And Marge is like, oh, I'm Bart Simpson's mother. You can't get anything by me. And Lisa tries to escape, and Marge is like, aha, Bart tried that when he was 3, and it's done. But then there's this great thing. So Lisa was climbing down the tree, and Marge got her. And then they go back inside, and then the tree opens up, and Bart comes out dressed as a ninja, and he's like, haha, Bart Simpson age 10.
Yeah.
And he skateboards into the night.
Yeah.
I thought that was so awesome, and I really wished this episode was about what Bart was doing before and after that moment. Like, I want to see that story so badly.
I liked it. I wasn't crazy about it. I think maybe the way you describe it, I like it more. I think I'm biased because I thought the scene was going somewhere else. Marge catches her in the laundry basket and goes, Bart Simpson, age 3. And I like that. Yeah. And I thought they were setting up a montage where Lisa was going to try all these ways to escape. And she'd be like, Bart Simpson, age 6.
Yeah, I thought they might do that too.
And then I guess because I was expecting that, the ninja thing fell a little flat with me.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like the only thing Bart did in this episode other than the kung fu thing in the beginning.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a good moment.
I like it that it was true to character, you know.
Yeah, and I love that he was dressed as a ninja. It was cool. It was funny. I liked it. One thing that I didn't think was cool or funny and that I did not like was another weird extended flashback scene. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, well, we got to talk about this at some point.
I don't remember even the context of what brought it up.
It was...
Something happened with Willie.
Yeah, I don't remember the context, but it was Lisa and Juliette said something about their roots or something, and then they walk away, and then it just pans over to Willie, and he goes, I remember my roots, and then it cuts to this...
it's a flashback. It gets all sepia toned. It goes to Ellis Island.
It's playing old timey music.
Right.
It's a very turn of the century vibe.
Right, and like Willie comes up and he's like, "I'm Dr. William whatever," and they're like, "Your name's Groundskeeper Willie."
Yeah, you're not a doctor anymore.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And it was like probably 30 seconds.
It was long. So
it felt really long.
In my notes, I just have, the fuck was that Willie face?
Yeah, no, that was
the fuck was that Willie. Yeah, in my notes I have, the fuck was that Willie flashback? That's literally like, it was out of nowhere, it was really long, and it was all to set up a joke that they've done a million times before and
like,
better.
Your name is Groundskeeper Willie. It's just like, that was not worth it.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's his actual name. To me, the joke was more he was a doctor in Scotland, and now he's a groundskeeper, because they've done so many great, weird Willie backstory jokes about what he did in Scotland and, like, the Starbucks full of manure and stuff like that. Like, I like those, and this was such a step down from that. So even by itself, if they were just like, I was a doctor and at Ellis Island, so if that was by itself, it's just weak. The fact that they had a 45-second...
both figuratively and literally. They draw it, it was animated, but they drew it out because it was taking so damn long.
And there's no jokes
joke
to it. It's just the period music. It was very pretty. It was a very great depiction of Ellis Island. Island.
The animation was strong throughout this episode.
There was but there wasn't. It wasn't a joke. There wasn't. That was the only joke. Was the groundskeeper Willie? And I guess maybe the weird surreal fact that Willie came on Ellis Island, which hasn't existed in the
really. So Willie is hundreds of years old.
The fact that they picked this turn of the century style for a flashback that I would assume was like 1997 at this point.
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
So that's even weirder. Another meta layers and layers of crap. So then they go. So let's talk about that White Castle clam shack.
Clam-a-lot.
So the third act, I guess the story needed some kind of climax. The climax is that they go to this castle to do their fantasy land, and the bullies, Jimbo, Kearney, and Dolph.
Yeah.
They come in. That's actually their hangout place, which makes sense, an abandoned store.
Yep.
A restaurant. And but they were like, oh man, they discovered our hangout, and they discovered the shit we stole, whatever. So they lock them in cages.
Which seemed a little extreme.
Yeah.
For like these, they're not good people.
I mean, they're
bullies.
Circle Flanders for 24 hours on mopeds.
But that's different than like locking 2 8-year-old girls in a cage in the middle of nowhere.
So the plot point, I thought it was much, but that's not actually what I want to talk about.
Yeah,
I've mentioned this before. I don't like the bully jokes in the new seasons, and I was like, I can't
on.
place why.
Yeah,
it's just like we were saying, like it was almost too much.
Bully,
and like. I think I've stumbled upon. I at least shed some light on why it doesn't jive with me.
Oh, let's hear it.
I think it's almost too much detail. Like I said, like they were trying too hard to give them quirkiness. Like I said, like I liked when Jimbo watched the soap operas with his mom because that was a one and done. But then lately they do these like drawn out jokes where. Like, all right, just in this episode, they make a reference to he had a bar mitzvah, and like right off the bat, I can tell they want us to think it's funny that he had a bar mitzvah. And it's like, well, why is it funny? So he's Jewish.
Yeah, it's not funny at all.
So that's one thing. And then the joke is that he did invite Kearney, or I think it was Kearney.
He didn't invite Jimbo.
Yeah, he didn't invite Jimbo. Now there's something intriguing there. That's a very specific detail. It's like, oh man, maybe his mom wouldn't let it. The same thing with Bart and Milhouse. Maybe their parents wouldn't let him, or maybe he secretly just doesn't like Jimbo and he didn't invite him.
So you want an episode about the bullies?
So that's what I'm saying. Is I would love if they did a episode just on the three of them, like they did with Chalmers.
That would kind of be good.
Because I feel like those specific details and there's such a great dynamic there.
Yeah.
It deserves to be fully explored.
Yeah, that could be fleshed out.
But I don't think it works half-assed. Like every time we see them and they just show... You would think if you hinted at the rest and just showed a little bit, it would work. Because we can fill in the blanks. Usually that's great writing. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, every time they do bully jokes like that, with like the bar mitzvah thing, like if they did a full episode and he has a bar mitzvah and he doesn't invite Jimbo, I could see myself liking that. But them just going, oh, the bar mitzvah, it just, I don't know, it feels like that's the quirk that he's Jewish.
Yeah.
Like it's very lazy.
It was very lazy. And then also Kearney... eventually, Dolph and Jimbo leave, and Lisa and Juliette use their storytelling abilities to kind of bring Kearney under their spell.
Yeah.
And they're talking about the fantasy world, and Kearney goes, "Is there them dragon things?"
Yeah.
That landed really flat with me.
It's very heavy-handed, and that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's like, we got to make him look dumb, and also like make him sound dumb.
And he's childish.
Yes.
And again, if there was a full episode where we got to know the three of them and like got to know Kearney better, I would probably buy something like that. Where like it would be almost great if this fantasy stuff was the B story, and then them kidnapping Lisa and Juliette was their B, was the plot driving elements of their character dynamic story, the bullies.
Yeah.
Reverse, because
But you could have had the bullies appear earlier in the episode, maybe even in the art class, and tie it all together.
I mean,
somehow.
I'm not saying I do think there would have to be its own complete separate episode, but I'm just saying like the current those weird things about Kearney would make more sense if we got a fuller sense of who he is. But as is, since they're just doing it here and there, it's so heavy-handed. It's like, yo, look, he's a big dumb boy, and it's just, I don't know.
It's just
and Dolph's Jewish. Like, all right, there's your character work. Thanks, Simpsons writers.
Those are jokes.
This place is where we came after my bar mitzvah. You said you weren't having one. It was just family.
So we already talked about how the end happens out of nowhere or doesn't happen. It's like shit. We got a minute left. Better end the episode. We have to send Juliette off into the distance.
I guess not same with the Gaga. Gaga was a bad episode, so the non-ending was just another step. This one was. I think there was another episode. I forget. Maybe it was the Skinner one. I don't know. I think there's a few where I was on board the whole time, and then they botched the ending.
Yeah, the fact that you were just like, well, that Gaga one was a bad episode makes me think you liked this episode.
We'll
get to that.
We're gonna get into the ranking,
yeah.
but I liked the story.
Okay, well we'll get into that in a moment, but there is one more thing we have to talk about.
Do we have to talk about this?
It was easily the worst part of the episode.
Yeah. All
And
right,
I thought this episode had a lot of bad parts.
Right.
So the episode ends, we fade out, like Juliette's gone, Homer calls her Princess Nutjob for some strange reason.
Fade to black.
Fade to black.
Over.
And then Bart just says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Fallout Boy." Cue Fallout Boy playing the end credits.
Right.
Look, I don't love Fallout Boy. I'm not a huge fan. I know they have a Simpsons name, but they were never my thing.
Right.
They did a song in Big Hero 6, which I don't know if you saw, but that song was kind of good. I liked that. But, like, if Fall Out Boy wants to do the end credits for The Simpsons, sure, go for it. I don't care. Sonic Youth did it. It was good.
Yeah.
Theirs didn't sound that much different. Sonic's Youth was better. But what you shouldn't do is just like, hey, everyone, it's Fallout Boy!
Yeah, especially when it's Bart, because Nancy Cartwright, as great as she is as Bart, for some reason when she does the ringmaster, it always comes off as really... Ugh.
Yeah, it felt like really... dirty. I don't know. I felt dirty when they did it.
I agree.
Ugh.
So I don't like Fall Out Boy. To be honest, I don't listen to much of them. But from what I've heard, I don't like that genre. That's why I guess I'm kind of grouping them in.
Yeah.
I don't care for that kind of pop punk stuff. Although even when I was really into pop, we were really into pop punk in high school.
Back in the day,
we were really into pop. Like that was our.
We don't
shit.
need to tell people this.
No, but
I had a Newfound Glory shirt. That was cool.
But Fall Out Boy, I just never was into them.
No, me neither.
And what makes me really not like them, like as a gut reaction, I don't like them, is that it's kind of awesome that there's a really big popular band that is a somewhat obscure Simpsons reference. Like it's not obscure to us, but it's obscure. Like my mom, I always base things whether they're obscure or
your
not.
mom is the benchmark.
Yeah, she's always like I can tell if a celebrity is famous or like cult famous if my mom's heard of them.
If your mom knows, okay.
Like my mom's never heard of Dan Hedaya, I can tell you that. But
Dan Hedaya is a living legend, living as of this recording.
Let's hope so.
Dan Hedaya is not in poor health, I hope.
No, he's doing great.
Okay, good.
So Fallout, it makes me mad that there's finally that's so cool that there's a Simpsons somewhat obscure reference that's a band name and that the band is really popular. And like Fall Out Boy is kind of a great name for a band, so it just kind of makes me.
It's an okay name for a band.
It's a great name because it's a Simpsons reference.
Yeah.
If obviously we would try to, if it was me and you coming up with a band and we wanted to name it after Simpsons, we'd probably try harder than Fall Out Boy.
Right.
But it's great that it's Fall Out Boy.
There are lots of like indie bands that have more obscure Simpsons related names.
But this band broke out, and they're the biggest Simpsons named band out there for sure.
Yep. They're bigger than Crazy Town, that's for sure.
So it just is that Crazy Town the Butterfly song?
Yeah,
that's a
too much of a boy for. Or too crazy for Boys Town, too much of a boy for Crazy Town.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, now I kind of like them a little bit more for that.
Come my lady, come my lady,
give my sugar,
baby.
We can't sing. We're not singing.
Apologies to Crazy Town. Well, no apologies to Crazy Town. That song sucks.
Yeah. Well, anyway, no, that's crazy. That's Crazy Town. I had no idea.
Crazy Town.
That was anyway. So it makes me. I have this bias because I'm mad that. Like there's finally this cool Simpsons band, and they're not cool. They're lame, and it's just it's just kind of a bummer. And they have every right to do the theme song for the show because they are a huge band that took their name from the show, and they're probably huge fans of the show.
I'm fine with them doing the theme song,
but
it was all about Bart saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's Fallout Boy."
What is it, Saturday Night Live? Come on.
Yeah, there's no musical guests on The Simpsons. Like even if they were in the episode and also did the end theme song, I'm more okay with that because then they're on the episode, so it makes sense. Like Sonic Youth did in the
you're right.
Homer Palooza
You're 100% right. You think back to that.
This made no sense. It didn't tie into the episode at all.
Do you remember? You were pretty drunk, but do you remember the New Year's episode, the Inception one we did?
Nope.
It ends with David Byrne and Glenn Close singing.
Yeah,
and we gave it a lot of shit because that song was awful.
We didn't know that it was a Dream Operator. It was a real song.
It was actually a Talking Heads song.
Yeah.
But as much as we didn't like that when we first heard it, imagine how much more angry we'd be if Bart or anybody, or if Sideshow Mel said, "Ladies and gentlemen, David Byrne and Glenn Close."
You know, if Sideshow Mel did it, I might like it.
That's right. I picked a really bad example.
Yeah.
Sideshow Mel's probably the best.
Fall Out Boy.
Okay, so we're
right, if it was Sideshow Mel, we would have liked it.
We agree Fall Out Boy has every right to do this theme song, and it would have been okay if Sideshow Mel did it.
But if you do it with Bart,
but
no dice.
All right, so now that we've nitpicked the hell out of that, sorry, Fall Out Boy. Well, just doing your jobs.
They're doing okay. Yeah, I think it's time to rank this episode. So let's throw it over to our old hippo scale, the old Dave system.
So I think we're going to keep the system so far. I think this is 3 weeks running. We're going to keep it pretty much the same.
I think we've reached a place where we're happy with how this is working and the numbers are good. We still haven't put any of the numbers on the website, but
let's give it some time. Let's give it some time. Let's make sure we're happy with this. One thing we are going to change is we'll take the ticking out.
Yes, we're gonna set a timer right now for 2 minutes, and we're gonna talk about the episode and rank.
But you will not hear the quadrants. I personally didn't mind the ticking. I'm a big clock game fan from Price is Right. I think it adds suspense. But I agree. Not everybody's on the same page. So no ticking.
Okay, so I am going to start our timer. I don't actually know what sound is going to play when it ends. I think it's just my generic
I don't think it's going
to
be. I think we're dropping the silly sound.
We're dropping our funny sound effect. Okay, so just a quick reminder: we've got 4 quadrants that we're ranking the episode on. We got the humor, the integrity, the production values, and the originality. Right. And the first two, the humor and integrity, are worth more in our ranking than the other 2
because we realized our gut was reacting more to those 2 categories. Yeah, it's more important to how you rank an episode. At least to us.
When you think of a bad episode, it's because it's not funny or the story didn't make any sense. So those 2. Should be more. So we got 2 minutes on the timer. We're going to start it right now. Jack, let's do it. Okay, humor. First thing, how funny was this episode? Did you laugh a lot? What do you think? Scale of 0 to 5 is how we're doing it.
Okay, so we're doing 0 to 5. 2.5 is
2.5 is
C
right
average.
in the middle.
I didn't think it was that funny.
I didn't think it was that funny either.
I'm trying to think of jokes I really liked.
I mean, there was
1.5.
There was a couple of things that I laughed at, but I think I'm going to go straight 1.
I mean, you watch a 20-minute show. If you're only laughing at 2 things,
we've just been talking about the show for like an hour, and I don't really remember what I thought was funny. So I'm going with a 1.
I'll give it a 1.
The integrity of the episode, were the characters themselves, did the story make any sense? Did it all tie together? There was a huge glaring problem of the plot, which didn't make any sense, especially at the end with the resolution.
Yeah.
So I'm looking kind of low on this one.
I
know you liked the story.
I really liked the story. I really liked Lisa's the fact that we were focusing on Lisa's creativity. I liked Marge's being happy about her.
Yeah.
All those, I think, are huge pluses. Bart being the ninja and sneaking out, that's a huge point.
Well, I love that. That's definitely
I
that's
think
Bart-like.
this was really good. So I would say that brings it up to me in the 4s, 4.5.
No.
But then you got to take points away for Homer being so stupid and for that shitty ending. I'm gonna say a 3.5.
I'm going with a 2, man.
Maybe.
I think you're kind of crazy, but that's what we're here for. We're differing opinions.
All right.
Production values of the episode. I really liked a lot of the animation.
Yeah, we mentioned a lot of stuff we
kind of high on this one. I might go up to a 4.
I would say 3.5. I'm not sure. Yeah, I would say 3.5.
Maybe 3.5 is more. All right, I'm going to go 3.5 too.
And
so much for being different opinions.
And then originality, again, I really like the fact that they did a story about Lisa's creativity.
I liked
a different angle.
I like that they parodied a movie that not everyone has seen.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought that was
points away for being a parody, but points for being an obscure
for picking
movie.
Something that isn't, the blockbuster du jour. So
yeah, I'd give it 3.
All right, 2. All right, time is up.
So where's that leave us?
Okay, so that we tallied up the numbers. That leaves us. Lisa the Drama Queen is in between Kill Gill Volumes 1 and 2 and Goo Goo Gai Pan.
All right, so that's like the top.
That puts it in the top.
Least worst half.
In the least worst. I'm surprised. I really did not like this episode, but you liked it more than I did, so it kind of balanced it out.
I really liked the Lisa, Juliette, Marge stuff, and that was it. But I really liked it.
Okay, so that is it for this episode. If you have a terrible Simpsons episode you'd like to suggest, we got a bunch of places you can go to do that, but the easiest thing to do is just go to weepodcast.com. That's weepodcast.com. You can email us. Our Twitter's there. Our Facebook page is there. I'm not even going to list them all out. They're all on the website. Go check out the website.
Yeah, and you can tell us in person, too, and that actually reminds me, if you were one of the 3 or 4 people who did tell me in person last night at Simpsons Trivia, I had a lot to drink that night. It was Diorama Rama. I don't quite remember the episodes or your names, so if you're listening to this...
or where I am, or what my name is.
So if you're listening to this, I have rough estimates, but I'm afraid I might be wrong. So if you were one of the ones that was talking to me last night, it was really nice to meet you, but email us the episode so we get the right one.
Yes, definitely do that. And if you do like the show, tell your friends. If you have friends who like The Simpsons and who
like-minded individuals,
who like two idiots talking about whatever the hell we talked about this episode, share the show. It really help get the word out, and that helps helps everything.
I mean, we're really gearing this to Simpsons fans like us and like presumably you guys.
Yeah.
So the more the merrier.
People of fine taste, like the people who are listening right now, obviously.
Boys and girls who played with Dennis Nedry spine action figures.
Dennis Nedry spine might be the name of the episode. And if you do check out our website, wepodcast.com, click through our Amazon links. That helps keep the show free. We get a little kickback from whatever you purchase there. Just shop the way you normally would. Just click our links first. And if you are in the Brooklyn area, you can come check out Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia. That is at Berry Park in Brooklyn. I co-host that with friend of the show, Dan Ozzie. That's the first Thursday of every month. You just missed one. We just did Diorama Rama, as mentioned before. But you can come to those. I think it's April 2nd is the next one, whatever that Thursday is. And if you live in Toronto or Chicago, Wisconsin is not a city, but a place that has a I think it has a trivia. Just Google Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia and you can find one in your area. We will be back next week with a new contender for worst episode ever, and it is called Sex Pies and Idiot Scrapes. It is also from season 20. We're doubling up on season 20. We doubled up on season 13.
Yeah, because we hadn't done 20.
We're doubling up on season 20.
Up for it.
Yep.
But that's not the only reason.
But there's a reason we're doing it. St. Patrick's Day coming up. This is the episode that starts with that St. Patrick's Day parade.
I will believe it when I see it.
We think.
I will believe it when I see it.
We think. Which episode did we think it was and then it wasn't? Was it Kill Gil?
It was Bonfire of the Manatees.
Was it really?
Yeah, which turned out to be
a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, so.
All right, so thanks everybody for listening. And, we still haven't come up with a way to end the show. So we're just going to...
Top of the morning to you.
There it is.
Juliette, I'm worried this Josh Groban is becoming a bit of an obsession for you. Let's just listen to James Horner's soundtrack to the Pelican Brief, shall we? Track 3, Researching the Brief.
I hate track 3. I hate it. I hate it.